After a car accident, the question everyone wants answered is simple. What is my case actually worth? And usually that question comes right after the insurance company makes an offer that feels low, but they act like it's generous. They'll talk about your medical bills, maybe throw in a little for pain and suffering, and hope you don't realize what's missing. Future treatment, lost earning capacity, the real impact this has had and may continue to have on your life. I'm Eric Staton, a personal injury attorney here in Colorado, and our firm has handled car accident cases across this state where the first offer wasn't even close to the true value of the claim. In this video, I'm going to break down how car accident cases are actually valued in Colorado, what factors increase or decrease that number, and what insurance companies won't volunteer unless you know to ask. Because if you accept a number without understanding how it was calculated, you could leave thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars on the table. And once you sign that release, there's usually no going back. So what's your case actually worth in real dollars, and how do you keep the insurance company from buying it cheap before you even know what you're dealing with? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The first number they throw at you is usually based on what they can get away with in the first few weeks, before your MRI is scheduled, before you miss more work, and before your doctor says whether this is a 2-week problem or a 2-year problem. Let's walk through the exact things that decide value in Colorado and the parts insurance usually won't say out loud. But first, before we talk about injuries, we have to talk about the ceiling or the money available. Many car accident cases don't settle for what seems fair. They settle for what coverage exists. There are usually a few possible buckets: the other driver's liability insurance, your own uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. This is huge in Colorado. Medical payments coverage, which is available to pay for medical bills regardless of who is at fault. And sometimes a third party. Think a negligent road construction company or a bar that overserved a patron who caused a crash while under the influence. Those situations are less common, but it happens. But what insurance won't typically tell you are the different types of coverage available to you and how that coverage can stack together to cover your injuries. The big point is this: if you don't know the types of coverage available, the limits of that coverage, and how they stack together, you're negotiating blind. Second, the medical bills number is not the value, but it can be a gauge. A lot of people say, my medical bills are $8,000, so my case is worth $8,000, right? Not usually. Medical bills matter for 2 big reasons. First, they can show how serious the injury was with numbers. Serious injuries usually result in large medical bills. And second, they can help shape the value of pain and suffering, because pain doesn't come with receipts. But here's what insurance won't tell you. They don't just look at the total bills. They look at how quickly you got treatment after the crash. Was it the same day or 2 weeks later? Also, was the treatment consistent? Are there big gaps in your treatment? Insurance loves gaps. They also look at whether your treatment makes sense. For example, it usually doesn't make sense for the first care to be an ER visit a month after the crash. They also look to see if there are objective findings on x-rays, MRIs, or other testing versus subjective pain only. The big point is this: you don't just want treatment because you finally got around to it. You want treatment that helps to explain the story of your injuries and recovery from day one. Third, lost income is often undervalued because people don't document it right. Lost wages can be straightforward if you had a normal payroll job and you missed 2 weeks. But in Colorado, many people are self-employed, tipped workers, gig workers, commission-based, or hourly with overtime that suddenly disappears after an injury. What insurance won't tell you: if you can't prove lost income clearly with a medical explanation for your lost income, they will treat it like it doesn't exist, or they'll discount it until it's basically nothing. And there's a second layer people miss. It's not just wages you already lost. It can also include reduced ability to work in the future, needing lighter duty that might result in less pay, losing a promotion, or having to use paid time off you were saving later that had to use because of the crash. The tip here is, if your work life changed, even a little, document it with doctor's notes saying what you can't do, records showing your lost income, and don't forget about how your work life may be affected in the future. Fourth, pain and suffering is real, but insurance prices it using patterns. This is the part everyone cares about and the part insurance is most slippery about. Pain and suffering includes things like daily pain, sleep problems, driving anxiety, headaches, not being able to lift your kid, losing your ability to do your workouts, missing out on trips, hobbies, and missing out on normal life. Insurance companies will act like pain and suffering is made up, but behind the scenes, they still assign value using patterns they've seen in thousands of claims. They look at things like duration. Has your normal life been affected for 6 weeks, 6 months, or permanently? They look at intensity. Are you having to cope with occasional soreness or daily pain? They look at proof, notes in the medical records, imaging, referrals, prescriptions. They look at disruption. How have your injuries caused you to miss work, missed events, or cancel plans altogether? And they look at credibility. Are the effects on your life consistent with your injuries and your treatment for those injuries? One of the biggest value killers I see is this. Someone is trying to tough it out, tries to push through or delay treatments, hoping the pain goes away. Then later can explain the injury timeline with medical records that document what they went through. Insurance loves that. The tip here, pain and suffering gets compensated when it's documented and connected to real-life limits. Point 5. Colorado-specific issues that can change your value fast. Here are a few Colorado rules that can move your number up or down. First, the fault rule. Colorado uses a rule where if you're 50% or more at fault, you get nothing. If you're under 50% at fault, your compensation gets reduced by your share of fault. So if your case is worth $100,000, but they tag you 20% at fault, then your recovery becomes $80,000. Given the chance, insurance companies push fault arguments hard because every percent of fault they pin on you is a discount to them. Second, the seatbelt rule. In Colorado, not wearing a seatbelt can reduce damages, but it's limited. Insurance companies still love bringing it up because it sounds bad and pressures people into accepting less than their case is worth. Third, the lawsuit deadline. For most car accidents in Colorado, the deadline to file a lawsuit is generally 3 years from the crash date. Miss the deadline to file your lawsuit, and the case is over, no matter how strong it is. What insurance won't tell you, they may drag things out, act friendly, and then suddenly you're staring at a deadline. The big takeaway here, your case value depends on timing and leverage, not just injury and damages. Point 6. The future part of the case is where money is won or lost. Early settlement offers usually ignore future problems, but future damages can include future medical care, future lost income, long-term pain and suffering, and permanent restrictions or physical limitations. What insurance won't tell you, they don't pay for what may happen in the future. They pay for what will or will probably happen. And getting that sort of proof usually requires a doctor to connect the dots. That means to get fully compensated for damages into the future, your case might need a clear diagnosis, imaging when appropriate, a treatment plan, or statement about future care or permanent impairment from a doctor. The point to remember here is if you settle while the future is unknown, you usually sell the future for $0. Now let's talk about some range of value examples because you want a number. Let me give you 3 simple examples. These are not promises, just the kind of ranges people often see depending upon facts, proof, and coverage. Example 1. The plaintiff has a minor injury and quick recovery. The case may look something like this: a visit to the emergency room or urgent care, a few weeks of treatment, back to normal in 1 to 2 months. These cases can land anywhere from a few $1,000s to the low tens of thousands, depending upon medical bills, medical records that document your injuries, pain, and recovery, and whether liability is clean. Example 2, someone has a moderate injury requiring many months of treatment. Maybe the victim has a visit to the ER or urgent care, x-rays or MRI showing an injury, maybe referral to a specialist, lost income, and months of physical therapy and maybe therapeutic injections. These often fall into the tens of thousands of dollars to 6 figures, but coverage limits, fault arguments, and a strong causal connection between the crash and the injuries can control the outcome. Example 3. Serious injury, maybe without life ever returning to normal. This plaintiff may have a significant head injury, surgery, fractures, a very lengthy period of recovery, and permanent limitations. Now you're talking about a range in the high 6 figures or more, but only if there's the type of proof we've been talking about and enough insurance or other resources of recovery to actually pay it. What insurance won't tell you about the value of your case is that their own studies have shown that claimants do better when they have an attorney on their side. Insurance may not even make a reasonable offer otherwise. If you were sitting across my desk, these are some questions I'd want answers to before I trust any offer from the insurance company. 1. What are the policy limits, theirs and yours? 2. What's the medical diagnosis and the plan for the future? 3. Are you still treating? If not, why not? 4. Did you miss work or lose earning ability, and can we prove it? And 5. Are there really any fault arguments against you? If you don't have solid answers to those questions, accepting any offer is almost always premature. The lesson here, the right number comes after the right questions, not after the first phone call from the insurance company or what the adjuster tells you the right number is. So here's what you should take from this. Your case value is usually based on coverage, medical proof, work loss, and real-life impact. Insurance will often try to settle early before you have answers to important questions that determine the value of your case. Colorado rules on fault and deadlines can change everything fast. The future part of your injury is where people get underpaid the most. If you want help figuring out what coverage exists and what your claim may realistically be worth, you can call our office. We'll listen to what happened, explain the next steps, and tell you what we'd be watching for if our family member was in your shoes. And don't miss the next video, because it ties directly into value and can save your case if the insurance company is already hinting that you share blame.